Hey everyone, it's Stacey with another edition of Dietitian Career Success. And I have a fabulous guest on today who's going to talk to us about something you might be thinking, might be in the back of your mind. If you are curious about how you can run a side gig as a dietitian in addition to having a traditional job, then you're in for a treat. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Katie Kage. Welcome, Dr. Katie.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I'm happy to be here.
You and I met through, I forget how we met. You have like this very interesting career path that you've created for yourself, a really amazing journey. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your traditional job, and then we would love to hear all about your non-traditional job. But tell us a little bit about your background. I know that you have chosen to create an amazing path in as a dietitian, but also someone who has their doctorate degree. So maybe share a little bit about your traditional job and your career path to get there.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm from a small town in Kansas, so Midwestern girl. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but when you're in a small town, I feel like you either find yourself maybe in trouble because there's not a lot to do, or in my pathway, I became involved in every sport imaginable. And so I found, although not really good at any sport, I enjoyed that camaraderie. I enjoyed physical movement and exercise. The other thing that I really, really loved coming from the Midwest is eating food and all those casseroles. And we just really come together around food. And so I knew I loved to eat and I loved food and I loved exercise. And the thing that kind of brought those two together was my passion to help people. And so that kind of birthed this idea of, well, what career paths could align that with those two pieces? And so I started my academic journey at a community college. That went on to Kansas State University, where I majored in both nutrition, dietetics, and kinesiology or exercise science. Around that time, I started playing with this idea of how much I enjoyed being on a college campus. I enjoyed that atmosphere. And I thought, man, if I really love being a student, I think I could really love this idea of being on the other end and being a professor. And so I thought, let's see if my life, if I can get there. That seems very big and I don't know if I can attain it, but that will be the place that I shoot for. That then got me into applying for my master's and dietetic internship at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I was afforded an amazing opportunity, which I always tell students, if you can get a graduate assistantship, if you're going on to grad school, do it. And mine was actually at Campus Rec. So it wasn't directly aligned with a dietetics department or health department. It was within Campus Rec. And I was a fitness instructor, graduate assistant. So I was able to use that kind of exercise science background in the fitness realm. I taught everything from yoga to Zumba to cycling, and that paid for my entire graduate degrees. So I was able to stay on. Finished my internship, became a registered dietitian, and that graduate assistantship allowed me to stay there at the University of Nebraska to complete my doctorate degree. So that's kind of how I finished all of that.
I love the path that you, and I love the point that you make about that you saw this opportunity as with a graduate assistant position, and that's what sort of propelled you on to the next phase. It's funny how, though you and I both have like similar backgrounds, and that I came from a small town, except that I got into trouble. And then later in life, in my like discovered sport, I'm very sporty now, but definitely got in trouble a lot. And then went to a community college as well, because nobody at my high school had really gone to college. And so we didn't even have a college counselor. So anyway, that was interesting parallel there, except then you went on to then get your doctorate degree. And I think that's really fascinating. Would you recommend to other people, other dietitians, or what type of a dietitian mindset do you think would really benefit from taking on the task of a terminal degree or a doctorate in nutrition?
Great question. I think now that our entry level into dietetics has been moved up to a master's degree, I do think that for those individuals who would have maybe traditionally gone and gotten their bachelor's and then just wanted a little bit more and then done their master's, those types of individuals, this might be a great opportunity to, hey, I'm going to set myself apart a little bit from the rest of the crowd. I mean, I think if you want to be in academics, getting your doctorate degree is really needed. I also think if you have any idea or desire to be in the research field, whether you want to be in academics or not, I think having that terminal degree, again, just allows more doors to open. It allows a little bit more credibility, and you just have more experience with research to help you feel more confident in moving into that path.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's funny, we have another parallel. I did go into research. I wasn't the director of a program, but I got to participate in a prostate cancer lifestyle trial where it was required to have a master's degree, right? So it helps you get into the door into a lot of different professions. And I think now that there's a lot of different options out there for dietitians, having a terminal degree, having a doctorate, and it sounds like regardless of what the focus is,
Yeah.
you have your doctorates in, remind me. That's all. Yeah. I think you can go into, like you mentioned, like academia or into research. You can also work for the industries. So
Yeah.
whether it's a large food company, there's a
Yep.
dietitian that works for a food company, but it's for animal care. So I
Oh,
think you're right. Like
wonderful.
there's a lot of different options, and nutrition informatics, like there's a lot of different options available to dietitians with this doctorate or terminal degree. So thank you
Great.
for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. And then you moved on. You're now working in academia. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my first job actually after I got my doctorate degree was in campus rec. So I moved to Colorado. My first job was as a fitness and wellness coordinator in Colorado on their campus for their campus rec center. And so in that job, I actually, although that did not need a doctorate degree, again, I was the only one within that entire department, including my boss, who had that terminal degree. And that did open up my opportunities to kind of get connected with other people on campus and do some research things. They allowed me, I think, more flexibility than what other individuals in that position had been afforded before me. And I was in that position for 3 years. I oversaw group fitness, personal training, nutrition, wellness, and massage therapy, which was fantastic. And then a full-time position within the dietetics program on that same campus opened up. And I just thought, I'm going to throw my name in the hat, more so for the practice of what it's like to interview. And then they'll tell me great feedback on why they didn't choose me for the job. So I can then start building those skills for the next job that I will then apply for. And they hired me. I got chosen. And so I just moved from one side of campus to the next and started as an assistant professor there at the University of Northern Colorado. And I was able to be there for 7 years within that department and worked my way up to being department chair before I left.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Thank
really
you.
wonderful. You've got a great path. I think it shows a lot of perseverance and dedication, I would imagine. Do you remember what that interview process was like? Was it obviously more than one interview?
Yes, it was intense, which I knew that it would be. And so again, I thought, well, this will be good practice for me. It started the night before where I had a dinner interview. And so although it was at dinner, you still know that you're being interviewed a little bit more casually. And then the following day, I started at 8 a.m. and finished at 5 p.m. So it was continuous from meeting with students to others in the department to, of course, the dean. I had other institutions on campus that the dietetics department worked with, like athletics, they were involved. I had to give a teaching presentation as well as a research presentation. So there was presentations involved. So yeah, it was very intense, which again is why I thought I need the practice because this is not a skill that I felt confident at all, and very blessed that I got that position. I'm now at a different institution in the Kansas City area, and I felt so much more prepared and confident for this time around than I did that first time.
But that's a great story. And I think we can all learn a little bit from that, when something seems insurmountable or that you think you're for sure going to fail because you think you're not qualified, turns out that may not be the case. It could be, but it may
Right.
not be. And so just keep your options open. And I like the idea too, though, that you mentioned, like just get out there and practice, even though you
Yeah,
think that you're not going to get it.
right.
You don't know that, but the benefit that you get regardless is this experience, a really intense experience in the process of interviewing and talking about yourself and talking.
Yes,
I'm imagining you were talking about your value, your skills, and
right.
what you can do in the department. And that makes sense then that you would also be offered a position at your next position. Tell us a little bit about your current position, your current traditional job.
So now I've kind of moved up in the ranks again a little bit. I'm now an associate professor at the University of Central Missouri. I'm their program coordinator. So very similar to department head. We're just a different structure. But I love that again. I'm teaching. I teach typically 4 courses a semester, undergraduate, graduate, online, in person, very much a mix. And then with that, I also do research. So I have a research line that I have to work on. And then also being program coordinator, I get to manage the rest of the nutrition faculty. I'm also that liaison between our program and the bigger department and kind of moving up the chain in the university. So lots of meetings, helping to schedule, managing budgets, all of those pieces come with it too.
Hey, I love to hear all that you're doing. I know everyone else is going to be interested as well. So now sort of fast forward. So you have this traditional job, which
Yes.
sounds like a lot. It's a lot more actually than I thought it was going to be, which gives a lot of other people who are listening to this a little bit of hope because in addition to your traditional job, you also have created a side hustle as a
Yes.
dietitian. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Call it a midlife crisis. I don't know. I turned 40. We moved from Colorado to here. We have 2 small children, and there was just something about all of that that I felt like I love my job. I love the career path that I've chosen. And I feel like I can do more and I want to expand myself a little bit more. So I thought, okay, could I start a private practice and do some consulting on the side? And the more I kind of thought about that, I just felt like it wasn't landing right in my soul. And from becoming a mom and seeing my personal experience of how much I struggled with just that new identity and still trying to kind of climb the corporate ladder and be successful in my career, I just felt like there was not enough support for women and moms in particular. And so I decided I knew nothing about starting a business. Didn't know where to begin, but I started that a year ago and it's really tailored. It's an online business that's tailored to support moms living more healthy, connected, bold, confident lives. So it's not nutrition necessarily niche focused. It's more behavior change in general. So if you want to lose weight, if you want to eat more fruits and vegetables, if you want to connect with your kids more, if you're having issues with body image, whatever those things might be, here's the framework of kind of science-backed behavior change research to help you actually move the needle in a way that you can do when you have no time. Because as moms, we just don't have time to do anything, it feels like.
I'm feeling like everyone who's listening to this is like either snapping their fingers or yelling or like raising their hand. And anyone who has found themselves in a parenting position of some
Yeah.
sort, auntie, a mother, a father, whatever it might be, it
Mhm.
is hard work.
Very
I
hard.
think there's a lot of glamorization about all the arts and crafts you can do and all the cute little sandwiches you can make with the cookie cutters and, all the beautiful like, cuddles that you have and
Yes.
reading books, but it is hard,
Hard.
relentless work.
Right.
And so to have you with so much amazing background that can support these people on their path to be good parents. Everyone wants
Yeah.
to be a good parent. So to have this support, I mean, all over the place. I think a lot of people are like, okay, how'd she create this business? And I love that
Yeah.
she's got this business and she's got this traditional job. Like you've got all this really great stuff. I'm so appreciative. And I also know that one of your areas of expertise is weight inclusiveness
Mhm.
and body image. And so I love that you bring that to this business. And we should also say your business is called BBIQ and you do it
Yes.
together with another person
Yes.
and the two of you run this. So how did you learn how sort of the nuts and bolts of the business part, like how did you learn how to create your offerings or to
Mhm.
be able to connect with your audience? Like what were some of the things that you learned along the way?
That's a fantastic question. So, as you mentioned, I have a business partner, a really great friend of mine. She has her MBA and she's very much she also has an MPH. She's very much public health focused and that MBA piece as well. And so, she's also a mom. So, of course, we bonded over that. I think we both knew we had this passion and expertise. And those two things coming together, we knew we could be successful at a business, but we had never done a business before. So we started really with kind of thinking about ourselves. What struggles did we have as new moms? What did we see between the two of us? Then we continued to talk to others, sisters, friends, coworkers, to kind of gather that information. So we really started with that. And again, how that aligns to what we can provide. We're not therapists. What is it that our skill set can help, maybe not solve the problem, but at least support moms in particular ways. So that's where we started. I will say something that helped us. We did decide to invest in a financial/business coach.
Oh, good.
Because we just really felt like, we could just wander through the streets with this and get almost stuck in our heads with imposter syndrome and just kind of talk, but we needed somebody to push us to do. And that individual has really been helpful of keeping us accountable, helping us think about things differently, help us like, what are some key metrics to see if you're on the right place or the right track. So that has been a really important thing for us.
Ooh, okay, thank you. I have to go right to the word metrics. I always like perk up when I hear that. And I know that our listeners also like to hear, again, sort of the behind the scenes, the nuts and bolts, like how to make it happen. And in your case, like knowing that you can sort of go in any direction with a side hustle, especially if it's not the one that's paying the mortgage or your rent, like that, maybe eventually it will, but in the meantime, you've got to build it up and build it in a way that makes sense. So what are some of the metrics that you look at to make sure that you're on the right track?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we have tried to stay really true to focusing on our clientele and our audience. I think it can get really easy to get swept up in how many followers you have, how much money did you make this quarter, how many sales, those things, which of course are important, and you need your business to thrive and be financially stable. I think for us, our passion was, are we actually helping people? And so for that, we look more at, again, for social media, for example, if we make a post, what are the comments saying? What's the feedback? What are our DMs saying about, hey, this post really impacted me. I really needed to hear that message. Those are some of the things that we take put a little bit more weight in, because that's our guidepost of like, okay, we're doing this. We're moving in the right direction. We've also, once a year, we reach out and try to connect and do some either interviews or focus groups with our ideal audience. And then we do some free giveaways for those people, again, to get more specifics of, if we were to offer this thing free or as a paid service, would you buy it? What would it need to look like? What are your pain points? And then again, trying to align our skills to that.
Oh, I love that. I'm thinking about my own business and how I learned that sort of late in my business. I was just sort of, trucking along, doing what I think is important. I think it's really helpful for dietitians to have really, really dynamic, modern resumes. And that is still true. But what gets the dietitians interested is they want to know how to negotiate their salary. They want to negotiate in an interview, and they want to learn how to better interview. And so I do provide that stuff for them, but I'm also like sneaking in like, this is how you have to do your resume so you even get an interview, right? Like, there's like a balance, but you're right. It's listening to what your client wants. You and I can both have our own ideas about how we want to serve our client, but if our client is not really, that's not their pain point, then we're not really helping them. Then we're not really actually being of service. So I think that's a sort of a hidden thing in there, right? That looking at what the revenue is or the engagement might be important, or how many people opted into a lead magnet to get an email address to eventually sell to them.
Yes.
But bottom line is, are we even providing a service that they need, that they want, and that they need? So thank you. Thank you. I am in just in talking with you, there are
Mhm.
so many skills that you have that I'm
Mhm.
learning that you have. I'm listening for them. And
Mhm.
I think there's a lot that you were sort of born with and some skills
Yeah.
that you have learned along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your skills? I'm going to say right now that I think one of your skills is that you're like super easy to talk to.
Oh.
You've got great communication skills. You're very confident and relaxed in your communication. So I think that's probably helpful both in academia, but also in working with your clients and your side hustle. But maybe you tell you tell us from your
Yeah.
perspective, what are some skills that you were born with that
Mm.
have made you successful? And then some ones that you've learned along the way.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's something that's very clear to me that I can remember from a very early on. So I know I was born with this. Is this like thirst for knowledge? I have to learn. I have to constantly be growing. I'm so involved in any like self-development, any of those things, which again, I think if you don't like to learn, even if you may not like the process. If you don't like the outcome of learning, I don't know if you'd be able to continue the path to get a doctorate degree. There's just so
That's a good
much
point.
involved in that. So I think for me, this just quest of constantly wanting to know, wanting to be better today than I was yesterday, no matter what that is, I think that's been something that's allowed me to push forward during some challenging times. It's not been easy by any, metric, but that kind of quest of like, I know that at the end of this hard work, I'm going to grow, I'm going to get better, I'm going to learn more. That kind of keeps me going. So I do know that that has really helped me along the way. I would say some things that I've learned. I know very true that I'm introverted and I do much better one-on-one than per se big groups. So learning that, I know I cannot change that part of me. I'm not going to automatically be extroverted, but I know that that introvertedness can stop me from, again, growing and expanding. So I've learned tricks, I feel like, to kind of hack my introvertedness and still get where I want to go. So, for example, like in college, I just naturally became best friends with probably the most extroverted dietetics student on campus. And so she would be like, hey, do you want to go to this? Hey, let's go sign up for this. Oh, do you want to be on the board for this? And I would have never done that without her kind of pulling me along the way. And so again, that kind of allowed me to be exposed to things because I was sort of riding her coattails a little bit, but it pushed me. And then, same thing, like I've been able to do enough of that I've really built the confidence. Or again, I knew I wanted to be a college professor, but speaking in front of a big group of people was terrifying. And so I decided to become a group fitness instructor in college because again, I knew how to do the exercise. I was fit. All of those things came easy, but then to do it on a microphone in front of 90 people was terrifying. But I built that skill and that comfortability by kind of staying in a comfort zone and using that to push me outside the comfort zone to kind of hack those introverted pieces.
Oh, those are so, I love those. Both of them are really handy gems for anybody, really. I think I love
Mhm.
the idea that you had the insight about connecting with somebody who's sort of your opposite, where you wanted to be. Maybe you didn't want to be at the same extroverted level as that person, but you knew that you wanted not to be inhibited or have fewer opportunities just by the nature of your personality, right? Like you
Exactly.
just wanted to get out there a little bit more, but you
I
needed
need
the
some
wing
help.
person, right?
Yes,
I love that.
exactly.
It's
Yes.
like a mentor. I think that's also
Mhm.
sort, we wouldn't maybe call that person a mentor, when you guys were students together,
Right.
but that's sort of what a mentor is as a grown up, when you're
Yes.
trying to find your career path or someone that's going to advocate for you. I mean, I think that's like the bonus of having a mentor as an adult is that they're always going to help you out, or they're going to make the introductions, or
Yeah.
they're going to give you some ideas, or they have a ton of ideas and they share them with you and get you involved. So that is very helpful for everybody. I appreciate that. I am thinking about all of the tools that you use in your
Mm.
job that people might be
Mhm.
interested in hearing? I know that you probably use statistical software. Maybe tell us about that, and then any other fun business software that you like as well.
Yeah, I think in general, I'm very organized. That's probably also a skill I was slightly built with, and then have just expanded on the quality of my organization. In my job as a professor, you have to use a ton of software. Again, I'm teaching a class through what's called an LMS, so Brightspace, Blackboard, Canva, those types of things. And then you've got budget software that you're doing things in. You write student notes or see student accounts and different things. And like you're mentioning with research, there's a bunch of different statistical softwares and things you have to learn and do. And I think, again, some of those were easy for me and some of those still aren't. But as long as you kind of trudge through and ask for guidance, you can make it through. For my business, we use ChatGPT. AI has been great with formulating, brainstorming ideas, or like, again, my brain is a little bit more logical. So coming up with even a business name or a name of a freebie that we're going to offer. I'm very like, this is boring because that's what kind of research you have to be so specific. It's kind of boring in a title of a research article, for example. You don't want that same language in an online business trying to connect with moms. So using ChatGPT has been great. Canva has been great. To run our business fully online, we use Kajabi, which kind of has our website and then the back end of our mom club that we have and how we get our e-courses out and so forth. So yeah, we use a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's good. That's helpful. I think people will be interested in hearing that. You said a word and it made me think, oh, I bet other people would like to hear this. You mentioned that you're organized and I know that you're a planner. Tell us like what do you plan? Like how are you a planner? Tell me about that.
I live and die by my calendar and it's color coordinated. Don't judge. And so so everything's on my calendar. It's color coordinated. I always tell students in class, for example, if they come up and say, hey, can I, stop by and do X, Y, and Z, or hey, can I submit this? Send me an email. I need a paper copy. My brain will not register it after we leave. So send me the email so that, I kind of read an email, put something on the calendar if I need to. I also try to, at the beginning of the week on Monday, start my work day with looking at my calendar for the whole week and organizing things a little bit differently. So yes, I have meetings or I have different things, but then I also have to-dos, tasks that need to get done. And I will then block out time on my calendar of projects that I'm going to work on or email this person, call that person, follow up here. So I kind of spread that out. And then every day I look and I prioritize the things that need to get done. And I do those first because life happens, things change, meetings go long, child gets sick, all of the things. So I try to start my day, if I can, with the things that are most important that really are time sensitive or the things that are the most difficult so I can get them done and checked off and kind of let the rest of the day kind of build momentum.
Okay, I feel like this was like a motivational session. I was like, of course we all know that, but
Do.
I like to hear it and to like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do today. That's what
Yes.
that's it. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing the innards of how you schedule your time because you do a lot of really amazing things as a dietitian and that's really helpful for the rest of us. All right, always my burning question and you can give your thoughts on this however much you want to say. Dietitians, we're always thinking of ways of how we can make more money. So, what advice do you have for dietitians who want to make more money as a dietitian?
It's a great question. I think the thing that comes to mind first, which may not be the traditional answer, is before starting to kind of look at other ways to bring in money, I would suggest two things. One, spending some time doing some self-reflection. So again, what are skills that you have? What are passions that you have that maybe you're not fully fulfilling right now? Or maybe in the future, what's that thing you want to write a book and you just don't feel like you could or you should or whatever. So maybe get real honest about your big dreams and what skills you have already and maybe what skills you could work on in some way. I also think it's important to really assess our mindset. I think sometimes in my perspective as women and what I see with us as dietitians, we want more money, but I think sometimes we have this inner conflict of, do we deserve more money, or are we worthy of that? I think that's something that's kind of taught sometimes as a woman and maybe in a helper field of, do I really, what would it look like if if my salary was $200,000 a year? Does that really set well, or does that make me uncomfortable? And if it's a little uncomfortable, then like maybe again, addressing what mindsets we have around money and our attitudes around money that might be blocking us a little bit from opportunities that could come our way, or we're kind of pushing ourselves in an area where we could bring in more money.
That's super helpful. I know that that's going to resonate with a lot of people in the back of their mind. I have worked with a lot of dietitians, both seasoned dietitians, brand new grads who were going to charge a certain amount, and they just said like, "Oh, I feel uncomfortable doing that because
Yes.
these people need me." And I think in addition to it, because we're a female dominated profession, but it's
Mm-hmm.
this nurturing, right?
Yes.
I am providing something that's helping them live, and therefore should I charge for that? It's like, it's
Yes.
life, right? Like
Yes.
it's eating healthy. And so there's a lot of shame in charging for those nurturing
Mm-hmm.
services. So
Yes.
thank you for bringing that up. I think that's super, super helpful. Dr. Katie Kage, thank you
Yay.
so much for your time, for your expertise. You're a real gem for all of us to learn from. And how can people who maybe want to connect with you, how would you recommend that they find you? I'll have some links down below, but
Oh,
maybe you can
good.
just tell us what will be helpful for other people to find you.
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok, which sounds really still kind of weird to say, but TikTok and Instagram, both I have kind of a Dr. Katie Kage profiles. And then I also have our business, which again is Team BBIQ with TikTok and Instagram. And then my email, if you want to post my email, folks can also reach out to me via email as well.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah,
much. We really appreciate it and hope you
thank
can come
you.
back. Bye
Yeah,
for
for
now.
sure.